Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, meet the new mammals just discovered in Peru. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Marcus Oliveira and special guest Dr. Silvia Pavan, Assistant Professor in the Biological Sciences Department at Cal Poly Humboldt. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Take it away, Marcus.
Hi everyone, thank you Rob. Hello to everyone who tuned in today with us. Today we have a very cool topic to cover here on Daily Dose of Nature. The whole idea of today's topic was I was thinking about to talk about squirrels from South America. So we do have squirrels here in South America, and most people know squirrels from other places in the world, but we have a lot of squirrels here, but we do lack knowledge on them. But in recent years, several new scientific articles have been published about squirrels here in South America. So I was thinking about start talking about squirrels. So this is a really interesting topic here to cover here on Daily Days of Nature. Not only because of the many scientific novelties, but mainly because the squirrels, we can see them in wildlife safaris. They are, diurnal animals, tree-dwelling animals. They have a beautiful pelage, and we should definitely look more often for finding squirrels here in South America. So I asked Dr. Silvia to talk to us about her research. She has been done some research on squirrels, amazing research. And when I talked to Silvia, she actually told me about a project she is doing, I think, in Peru, just to find this mysterious squirrel. And I was amazed with what she was telling me. And there you go. We have Silvia here today to tell us about her research. So welcome, Silvia.
Thank you, Marcus. And thank you, everyone, for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about squirrels and a little bit about small mammals, just new mammals recently discovered. So I wanted to start by introducing myself a little bit. I am a biologist. I work with fieldwork exploration and collections based research, which means research in collections and in labs for the discovery and description of species diversity. And I also use comparative biology to document patterns of biodiversity and including how species are related to each other, understanding the distribution of species, where they are, where they came from, their history, their evolutionary history, and also investigating morphological variation to address questions in a bunch of areas, including the classification of these mammals that I work with and their biogeographical history and evolution. And I also work a little bit with education and outreach. I'm a professor, mostly undergrad professor, and I also work with other populations, not just students, trying to promote the interest in biodiversity and conservation through education for our communities. So today, this was me, and today I wanted to share with you a little bit about some of the background and research interests on like why I do what I do, why I think it's interesting and important, and also share a little bit about a couple of research projects. One on Latin American squirrels, as Marcus mentioned. Squirrels have been highly neglected and understudied in a long time in South America, and recently we started this project to try to like promote more knowledge on squirrels and advance science and understanding on biodiversity of South American and Central American squirrels just in general. And another project that I want to share, which has to do with the squirrels project, is an exploration example project where we went to try to find out about one mysterious species of squirrel in South America, and we ended up finding several new species of small mammals, not just the squirrels that we were looking for. So just to start with my interests and research background, I'm very, very interested in understanding which species we have and their histories and the processes that may have related to the region of this diversity. And there is an extraordinary diversity, and especially in the tropics, we have very, very high diversity. So the red colors here in this map indicate higher diversity and also higher potential for discovery of new species that have not been, described yet in science. So the greatest potential for new discoveries in most groups is in the tropical area of the world and in the neotropical area, as you see here, which is most of South America and Central America and the south part of North America. We have very, very high potential for discovery of new species. And I have been also always amazed by these discovery potential, and in my work I guide a lot of my work on this. And the neotropical region is very, very interesting in this aspect, and also very important because we are losing species to extinction even before knowing that they exist. So we know that for each, estimates indicate that for each species that we know, there are other at least 4 species that have not been discovered and properly described yet. So we basically lack the knowledge on what do we have as species. And some of those species may have been may go extinct even before we know they exist. And this is the urgency of us exploring and properly discovering our diversity. And in my research, I have been exploring diversity and evolution of mammals, and in specific of small mammals, mostly in the neotropics, which is this South America, Central America area that I showed before. And small mammals, they encompass the most mammals we have. Most mammals alive today, they are small mammals, over half. So just the rodents, for you to have an idea, just the rodents, they are nearly half of our extant species of mammals. And the small mammals, they are super diverse, but they are also poorly studied in many cases, and in special in highly diverse tropical areas, such as the neotropics, as I showed before. So this makes small mammals a very, very attractive group for mammalogists and evolutionary biologists. They are a challenge because they are super diverse and still understood, but they also provide us opportunity for evolutionary biologists to learn about the patterns of biodiversity and the processes that generate this diversity and may affect diversity generation and maintenance over time. So one of the main lines that I do in my research, and biodiversity scientists also, other biodiversity scientists also do, is focus precisely on this most fundamental and basic portion of biodiversity science, which is the discovery and description of new species. So it's basically quantifying biodiversity. And I consider this important because not knowing the species that we have means we cannot have an accurate quantification of biodiversity, which precludes further investigation in several areas, including ecology, evolution, and conservation. So throughout the years, I have done a lot of taxonomic work and revisionary systematics work. So these are words for basically saying studying classification and how many species we have. And I have done this with a focus on South American mammals and small mammals. So these pictured here are some examples of new species that I have worked with and and described in the past years during my academic life.
Silvia,
Most marsupials, yeah.
let me ask you. Wow, so far it's amazing information we have been hearing here from you. Let me just ask you. So you describe all these animals there?
Yes,
So these are marsupials,
mostly marsupials. This is a
and
rodent.
I've been seeing them. All right, go ahead.
No, I was just complimenting. They're mostly marsupials from South America, and this guy here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I hope you can. Oops.
Yeah,
Okay, now it's a rodent, yes, but mostly marsupials.
yeah. What I wanted to ask you, I see how colorful they are, right? So you're gonna talk about a little bit about the squirrels, and they are very bright animals also. So let me ask you, are these animals diurnal? These small opossums there, they are very colorful, you know. So as you, as an expert, you must know. I don't know.
Yes, some of them are, but this is still a little bit open question because we don't know a lot about
Oh,
natural history for a lot of these animals. We are right now just like
okay,
barely knowing how many species we have and where they are, and we do know that some of these very colorful species they are diurnal, but we don't know about all of them. So your question is if if they may be very bright colored because they are diurnal. It could be. It's not very clear. I have investigated the potential association between being really brightly colored and inhabiting open landscapes areas or forested
okay,
areas. And we did find a signal for you can have mostly really brightly colored with these contrasting colors only in forested areas, not in open landscapes.
sure.
So there seems to be an association between habitat and the colors, but it's certainly not the only factor explaining, and being diurnal or not could be another explanation factor on the evolution of these colors. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I was just asking because I saw one of these animals during the day, and she was carrying like three babies on her back. It was really amazing. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And other time I saw them in the wild at night, like 1 in the morning. They were climbing a tree. So, yeah, I don't know much about them, about their habits. So I was going to ask you, but thank you. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And this is very cool subject. I'm highly interested on this, and we are lacking a lot of knowledge on like what these species do, their behavior. Are they mostly diurnal, mostly nocturnal? So it's a lot still to be, discovered and know in their like little words what they do.
All
But
right.
that's a great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so one very important source of new data on biodiversity science is fieldwork exploration because by doing fieldwork and bringing new specimens that will compose and add to the body of natural history collections, you actually adding material that will be used by not just yourself and to answer a given question on your project, but it will be also used by the broader scientific community to try to answer all sorts of questions on biodiversity. Because museums are center for comparative studies. So I do fieldwork exploration, and I also based a lot of my research in scientific collections, which, as I said before, are home for our
All right.
comparative biology studies. And I gather morphological data or anatomical data from the specimens, which is one of the big sources of evidence that I use in my research. And several of the scientists that working with describing diversity, they often also use this type of data, which is anatomical or morphological data that we say. So data can come from like external morphology, the patterns of colors, or like characteristics of the hands and feet of the specimens, or the fur characteristics, and also osteological characters, which often for small mammals come from the morphology of the skull of the animals. So how the skull may be different in one species and the other. And another source of data that I use a lot in my research is genetic data or DNA sequences. And for these kind of data, in addition to obtaining DNA sequences from what we call preserved tissue samples, which means tissue samples that have been obtained specifically and preserved either in ethanol or frozen or in nitrogen, to specific study genetics and obtain genetic data, we also can nowadays, with new technology, we can use and access DNA from historic material. So that's what I'm calling here historical samples. So we call also often, oops, uh, ancient DNA, which is not necessarily ancient, but it's like specimens that went to a museum and for which there hasn't been a collection of a material to be preserved to go like for genetic studies. But with new technologies and high true output DNA sequencing, which we call next generation sequencing, we are now being more and more able to retrieve DNA data from this historical material, and that is helping us to do a lot of things. I don't know why my slides keep passing. Do a lot of things and discover new mammals that were hidden in museum cabinets and we did not know about them, to unveil puzzling evolutionary relationships, which is like understanding how species are related to each other and how different in genetic characteristics they may be from each other. And also putting very rare and elusive species, sometimes extinct species, in a evolutionary context and understanding how that species contributes to the tree of life of that given mammal group, which is
Wow,
amazing.
Sylvia,
Yeah.
that is, yeah. That was what I was gonna say. That is just amazing. It's amazing to know what scientists are doing now, and so you discover new species on Natural History Museum now, you and your students. So and then you go on the field trying to find them, just like you think you see this is a potential new species or a rare species on lab, and then you go into the field and try to find them. That's what you do.
Yes, basically, we can also do that. So one great way of discovering new species is obviously to, going exploring in the field and collecting new data, and then you can figure,
Sure.
oh, this is new. But that was the sole mode until some time ago. Now we can also do the inverse. We can go to the museum, we can search data in the museum, and we can figure, oh, these, although it looks like these other species in morphology, the genetic data is telling me it's really different. So we can pay attention on cryptic species or even like species that are really rare that you cannot go to the field to discover. You can still like discover them and potential areas where they would be still nowadays from a museum perspective and using these
Great.
historical samples. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Thanks for asking. And so with that, I wanted to show you really briefly, but a hint on what is this project on squirrels that we are working on. This is a collaboration from several researchers from both North and Central and South America. And our aim here is to kind of build a backbone phylogenetic tree, which is basically a tree of the relationships and with our squirrels from South and Central America to understand genetically, from a genetical perspective, how much diversity we have. And with this backbone, we can understand about their diversity, their evolution, and we can add data on morphology and other types of data, geographic data, behavioral data, to understand much more about the squirrels per se. So the squirrels compose a very important and ecological diverse and globally distributed family of rodents. And we have over 300 species of squirrel, a little bit more than 300 species of squirrels, and they are divided in 5 subfamilies. So the name of the family is Sciuridae, and we have several subfamilies of squirrels. And in South and Central America, we mostly have 2 of these subfamilies, which is subfamily Sirene and Sciurilini, and that's the focus of this project, these 2 subfamilies. And they are illustrated here in this slide. So we have Sirene, which includes some very common squirrels, including common squirrels here in North America. Here I am illustrating the western gray squirrel, for example, which is very common. And I see them here on campus where I work. And also includes most of the tree squirrels in South America. That's the same evolutive group, broadly speaking. And we also have another very rare squirrel in South America that is only known from the Amazon area, and it's only one single species that is in the subfamily Sciurulinae. So these basically are the, just illustrating the South American squirrels. They are really cute and diverse in colors and
Wow.
habits. And just recently, we have started to touch what is really the diversity of South American squirrels, because they have been highly neglected. And until very recently, the most comprehensive studies on squirrels that treated American squirrels, or American tree squirrels, which is this group, they only included about 1/3 of the species, or less than 1/3 of the species that are known from South America. So we really did not have a perspective on a evolutionary perspective on a phylogenetic tree that I mentioned before, for these squirrels. So we do not know how they were related to each other, and we did not have even samples to like learn these things from these squirrels from a genetic perspective. And the reason
Silvia,
why, yeah,
sorry to interrupt you.
no,
I
please,
was
please.
just wondering, first of all, just for the other persons, the other people on the webinar, to see more these animals there in the picture, they are just beautiful. Let me just ask you, I didn't see all of them for sure. I just have seen some of them always on trees. So in South America and Central America, so squirrels have diversified mostly on tree. So they are not like really terrestrial animal squirrels like in other families.
That's correct. That's correct. And
Oh,
actually, the family of squirrels have some squirrels here that are mostly terrestrial, like Sherini, this subfamily, has a lot of
okay,
terrestrial forms. And this is distributed in North America. And these are popular ground squirrels here. But in
okay.
South America and Central America, we mostly have the tree squirrels, not the ground squirrels, which are these groups that I'm talking about and focusing. Yes.
Okay. So if we can, if you want to find them in wildlife safaris, we have to look on the trees, right?
Yes,
So just to be
correct.
sure.
Yes. And one more thing about these squirrels that I'm going to talk about just in the next slide, I can actually go there, is the fact that South American squirrels and Central American, mostly the South American, they're really shy. So it's not the type of mammal that you go in a safari and you will see for sure. Even if they are there, they might be really difficult to see because they're high in the tree canopies. They're really shy, and they are often really restricted to well-preserved forests. So they are very different from the tree squirrels that we have here in US, that you can see them right like in the pathway or like in urbanized areas. It's not like that in South America. And a lot of people that live in South America and even live in county places, in forested areas, they're not familiar with squirrels often because squirrels are elusive inhabitants of South American forests. So these groups in
Well,
South America.
let me tell you one thing. So the first time, not the first time, one of the first time I went to Amazon, I was searching for mammals there, and I saw a squirrel, like a really big and reddish squirrel, and I kept seeing him for like 5 minutes, and he was seeing me. I was looking at him, and he was looking at me, and he's just stopped for like 5 minutes, and he was like doing a sound. I haven't recorded it, unfortunately. I had a really good camera at the time. I was just too young. And the squirrel was like looking at me and making a noise and like shaking his belly for like 5 minutes. I have never seen that before. So
That's
I did have seen squirrels in Amazon after that, but never doing that type of behavior. So yeah, we don't see squirrels here near cities, but it's not that, you know, at least the species I've seen, they are not that difficult to see. But maybe that one you were looking for, that one from Peru, is like really rare. I don't know. Just tell us, please.
it's amazing. I mean, this observation, the behavior observation that you just shared, and this behavior from small mammals, just in general, including squirrels, is really a unknown field. We know nothing. We know almost
Okay.
nothing about the behavior of South American squirrels and other South American small mammals. This is super cool. I have never heard about these in a squirrel. I have heard some like weird things on other small mammals. And yes, you're right. If you go to the field and you have like trained eyes, you can actually spot them eventually. But it's not the type of animal that you go on a safari and you're gonna say, "We're gonna see a squirrel today." We can't really guarantee
Ah,
that.
right.
It's kind of like,
Sure.
I bet you have like hours and hours of field work until you see one squirrel. And it's not like everybody that will see them. It's just like more, I just
Sure.
wanted to like share the impression, and that they are much more elusive than in North America, where we see them like really easy. They are really shy, not shy, right? I mean, it varies a little bit with the species, but here we see more often squirrels. In South America, we have I used to call that, we have the correspondence on urban areas. We see rats, right? We see
Sure.
rodents, not squirrels, rats, house rats, in our urban
Mm-hmm.
areas, not the squirrels. But here, instead of the rats, we often see the squirrels, which is funny.
Okay.
But they are trap shy. They don't go on traps, for the traps that mammalogists set. And so one thing that made them to be really neglected in these phylogenetic and evolutive studies is the fact that we lack preserved samples for genetic studies
Okay.
for South American squirrels. Because uh, after the advent of genetic studies, mammalogists in South America were not using shotguns that much to collect, mammals. We mostly use live traps and other type of traps, and squirrels are mostly caught with shotguns. So we do have good collections of squirrels in the early mammalogists' time, like expeditions from the 19th century and like before 1980. Yes, but then after 1980, we don't use shotguns anymore to catch small mammals, right? So we kind of stopped collecting squirrels, not stopped, but decreased a lot. So we did not sample genetic resources for these squirrels in South America. And because of that, they have been neglected in phylogenetic studies, which is basically phylogenies are depictions, graphic depictions of relatedness between organisms, and using the phylogenetic knowledge or evolutive, knowing the evolutive relationships, we can add on top of this knowledge morphological data, geographic data, and ecological or behavioral data to answer questions about classification and basic diversity, about diversification, and about the evolution of traits in these groups. And we were missing that mostly for South American squirrels. But this project wanted really to sample really well these squirrels. And because we do not have a lot of modern preserved samples for these squirrels, this project also used a lot of historical samples. So 30% of our samples were from museum specimens that did not have preserved tissues for genetic data, to produce genetic data. And besides this sampling for this project, also used fieldwork, which I'm going to talk a little bit more just in a few minutes. So we did use this historical DNA, the modern DNA, normal, like as preserved samples, and also we went to fieldwork. So after all these like extensive sampling in South American, North American, and some European collections, we were able to sample diversity of South American squirrels and put them in a phylogenetic perspective, which is like to know the evolutionary relationships and the basic genetic diversity of these squirrels. And this is, I'm not going into any details. This is just like a depiction of our phylogenies and pieces of our phylogenies, but the big results of these were that we indicated that we have at least 6 new species of squirrels sampled in our phylogenies that have not been named yet, have not been discovered by science yet. And besides these 6 unnamed species, we have several other species that are considered today as one thing, but they have a lot of genetic diversity inside them, within them. So they may be 2 or 3 species, not just one. So this is what these original data from the phylogenies, from the sampling of these squirrels suggested, that their diversity is currently underestimated. And another great, one of the biggest results of this project is also we were, with these phylogenies, we were allowed to combine these with the geographic data to understand a little bit about the history of entrance of squirrels in South America. So how squirrels came from North America to South America, and they have colonized both South America and Central America. So Central America here in green, species that are in Central America today, and species that are in different parts of South America. So we can tell a little bit more in details the history of entrance of squirrels in South America. And we do detect that after squirrels entered South America, there was this big improvement or enhancement in the level, in the number of lineages of squirrels, which means after squirrels entered South America, they started to rapidly diversify, really, really fast diversification after the entrance in South America. So the star here depicts the time of entrance in South America, and you can see that the line of accumulation of lineages was going in a given piece here, and then it did really suffer a shift and started to diversify much, much more faster after entered South America. So this is another conclusion. We still don't know why this diversification, super explosive, happened after the entrance of South America, but now we have this suggestion to add morphological data and other types of data to try to investigate this phenomenon here. And this is the project on, this leads me to the project on exploration, which I also wanted to share with you, which happened in Parque Nacional del Rio Abiseo in Peru. So this is the fun part, I would say, because fieldwork is so amazing, and going to the field is always what has catch my heart in what I do. And I know you guys are gonna like these more too, because it's new mammals and photos. So here, this project arose in the context of the squirrels project. When I was doing the sampling for the squirrels project, you might remember that I said that besides doing sampling at collections and preserved samples, we also did field work, right? There was just a few species that we were not able to sample in museums, in museum collections. And one of these unsampled species, was this mysterious species of squirrel that was missing. And that was what is special about this squirrel, is that it was known by this one published record from few specimens collected over 30 years ago in northern Peru at the site, Rio Abiseo National Park, or Parque Nacional del Rio Abiseo. So we did not know anything about this, just the suggestion from a previous researcher that this was an unknown species, like unnamed species. And I, with this story of this like mysterious squirrel that was known for like one field work record only, and with the a story of a great potential for diversity in Parque Nacional del Rio Abiseo, I have wrote a proposal and got support from National Geographic to go on a exploratory expedition to this site in northern Peru. So this site, Rio Abiseo National Park, is what do you call it, a World Heritage Site. So it has really extreme importance, both in a cultural aspect and a natural aspect. So whatever is known from Parque Nacional do Rio Abiseo, that's like a lot of diversity. A lot of the diversity is still like undescribed. We have endemic species from the area known from there. And the site is still really not much studied. It's largely unsampled for small mammals, for example, which is the group that I work with. And with this story, together with the mysterious squirrel, I got this grant from National Geographic, and we went to this expedition to sample. And here I put a picture of the Solis, Peruvian Solis, and the same Solis, the 100, is depicting an illustration from Parque Nacional do Rio Abiseo, because the park is really well known from the archaeological sites from pre-Incan culture. So for you to have an idea, Peru has two World Heritage Sites. This is one of these, and another is Machu Picchu, which is really well known from his archaeological importance and also natural importance. And this is kind of in the same level, but it's still hidden under the forest. A lot of these is still like to be discovered. So I have some pictures of this archaeological diversity that can be found in the park, and also representing the importance for the country. So the team.
What great data. I didn't know that this place was so important. So really nice to know there's some special places that are concerned to biodiversity and also on culture level. And just for you to know the time, you have 20 minutes. So we need some time for a few questions. We have like 20 minutes yet, and we actually can I don't know, like 5 or 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, yeah, no, I think I will be done like in maximum 10 minutes. So,
okay,
and
great.
Please feel free to interrupt me if it's going more than it should.
I'm loving it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is Parque Nacional do Rio Abiseo, the idea of the expedition. This was the team that joined. It's a mammalogists, which is like people that study mammals like me, and also herpetologists, which are researchers that study herbs, amphibians, and reptiles. So we went on this combined team to sample small vertebrates from this place. And now I'm going to focus a little bit more on mammals because that's my side. But as one of the result of this expedition, we have these like really great success of collecting and registering lots of different species, including several mammals and at least one lizard from the herpetology side and one frog that seemed to be new to science. But from the mammalogist's perspective, this was especially exciting because over half of the mammals that we collected there, we were just like look at them and say, I don't know what this is. And it came out because they actually do not have a name. Apparently we couldn't know because they are not known by science. And then our expedition, just like to tell a little bit of the details of the expedition, this happened back in 2018, the expedition. And this is the map showing just like where the Parque Nacional del Rio Abiseo is in Peru, and the sampling sites that we did, and a little picture of one of our sampling sites by the Monte Cristo River. And some numbers here. We were able to get to our sampling sites after, traveling a lot and then walking for 1.5 days with the help of some mules to carry things and a lot of other helpers from local communities. Here are some of the traps that we set there. This is called the pitfall traps. Oops. This is called the pitfall trap, which is where you put a buckets in the ground and guide a fence guide between the buckets to have specimens going in the pitfall, and then you can get there and collect them. So it's a capture method, and this is another one. You can see the Sherman trap here. So for you to have an idea of how we captured these specimens that you're gonna see in the pictures. And one general conclusion from these, the data that we retrieved from there, in 15 days of sampling, active sampling, where our traps were opened during the expedition, we have registered 16 species, which is a really high number for only 15 days of sampling. And our curves of diversity, or the extrapolation that we calculate using mathematical models, tells us that if we keep sampling for a longer time, we would be able to at least collect 1 or 2 more species from the 16 that we have registered. And combining the data that we collected with data that was previously invented from 30 years ago expedition that I mentioned before. They went there just 30 years ago and did a bunch of collections as well. They collected 7 species that we have not collected. So putting together 7 species from previous survey plus our 16 species, we have 23 species in the area, which is way above whatever is known from high Andes non-volant small mammal communities, which the maximum recorded in any other locality has been 17 species in 2 other sites. So this is a very, very, very special place. And we still need to learn a lot about the place and revisit the place to, continue increasing our knowledge on the area. But I wanted you to meet some of these mammals that we have collected there. So one of these is this cute mouse opossum from the genus Marmosa and subgenus Stegomarmosa. This is a very, very unique species, which has this it looks even like a shrew, because it has really long nose and very delicate nose. And I have a little video here of this only specimen of these species that we collected there. So this guy is really unique from both the genetic perspective that you can see here in the phylogenetic tree. It's highly divergent from whatever is known in the group, have been described already, and also morphologically is really different from whatever we know in this group. So this is one of the guys. Another one, just because it's also super beautiful, I selected some of these species to show you. This is the woolly mouse opossum, and also apparently an unnamed species that we found from Parque Nacional del Rio Abiseo. We have registered 3 specimens of these species, and is also genetically very distinctive from the closest related species that have a name. But we did not study the morphology of the species yet. So a lot of this is known just from genetics, because it was the first perspective that we studied, and now we have a lot to do, because for each one of these species that I'm showing, we have to do lots of extra work to study anatomical data and also try to access anything about natural history and ecology of these species and do the formal description of the species. And a little bit of behind the scenes here for like how we do this type of photo. So this guy, yeah, this picture here didn't come with like no effort. These were like the photographer and two other people helping because these animals are really active, and we had to set up a camp. What is the name of that? Tent, just to have as our studio, and then have people helping to get the type of image that I'm showing you. So a little bit more about some of these new species. This is a rodent species, not a marsupial, as I was showing before. That's called the bamboo rat. And it's also genetically really distinctive from whatever has a name in the genus Dactylomis. And here are some extra pictures in the wild. And,
Silvia,
yeah.
did you get to hear their call? Because this bamboo rat, I heard them sometimes in the wild in Amazon, but like a beautiful sound. Did you get to hear this one?
So no, it wasn't vocalizing, and
Okay.
these guys, they have really like this particular vocalization and loud vocalization, but these guys were not, and we were just lucky to see them doing our active searches, because otherwise I would not have a hint that they are there because they were
Okay.
not vocalizing. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, very curious that they were not vocalizing, but maybe it's a season thing, or maybe this species does not use that much, or they vocalize and we can't hear the, maybe the what's the frequency that they use in their vocalization. I'm not sure. This is another species that's water mouse, also apparently unnamed species. And this is particularly, special because it's a named species and it's also unnamed genus. So the rodent does not have even a genus name yet. So it really shows how much we don't know about our diversity of small mammals. And the story of this fieldwork is very exciting. The expedition was exciting. We were seeing all these cute animals and super cool animals, including these ones pictured here, the Andean bear and the yellow-tailed woolly monkey. But the thing is, we were excited and happy, but we were not seeing the squirrel that we went. You remember that we went on the expedition with the main message of like, we're gonna go for the squirrel, but we're not seeing the squirrel. And here is a little bit of behind the scenes. The bear found our traps, and that wasn't particularly very happy. We needed to start hiding our traps, and then that worked well, but it was a little bit more effort than I had planned. As you can see for my face here, I wasn't that amazed with the traps destroyed, but it worked well. And here a little bit more behind the scenes on like how the picture was taken. Don't do that, of course. We had a team and we were actually like respecting the space, but the bear was really curious and was visiting us at our camping site almost every sunny morning. Uh, Almost every morning that we had sun. So the bear was really curious. And we were seeing like I put it here one example out of mammals because I figured you guys would like to see this. This is the yellow brown toucanet. It's really rare species and it's only found on this particular area on the eastern slopes of the Andes in Peru. So it's one of the rarest toucanet in the world. A very rare and with a restricted range, and is also a endangered species that we were able to see there. So we were really happy seeing a lot of animals, but not the squirrel. And at the end, the squirrel did his appearance for us in the very last day of sampling, but did not come to our traps as expected. At least the photographer of the group was able to see the squirrel really quickly in a 10 seconds appearance that the squirrel made. So we had at least the opportunity to have a picture of the species. And this is the only known images of the Peruvian mountain squirrel, in its natural habitat and not as a preserved specimen in a museum. So alive, right? So it was happy, but I didn't get the sample of the squirrel to put the squirrel on the evolutionary perspective that I mentioned before. However, when we were passing through Lima in the collection, in Lima, the museum collections, I was able to sample historic samples for the squirrel that were in the museum. And the happy end is that we were able to place the species in a phylogenetic context and really confirm that genetically is very different from whatever have a name. And then we confirmed the squirrel as a new species to science that now needs more work on it. We now have to collect morphological data as well, and all the remaining data that needs to be collected to describe properly the squirrel and give it a name, because it's not yet baptized in a scientific, um, um, perspective. So that's it. I'm sorry if I if I talk too much. And if you guys have questions, I'm gonna be happy to answer. And that's what I wanted to bring you today. I'm gonna leave you with this video. Marcus, do we have time for a little video, or it's actually, it doesn't have any sound. It's just like video with images of the Andean bear.
Let us see if people have questions. Then we can maybe share the video.
Okay, okay.
All right, thank you both so much. Now, before we start in with the questions, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. So, could you tell us what the name of the red squirrel with the large black stripe down its back and with the gray tail? It seems so unusual. People were really interested in that.
Which one? These guys? No, you probably talking about one of the squirrels that I had at that's a Central American squirrel, a Mexican squirrel, I think, that you mentioning. Sorry that I will not have the name for that right now, but I can certainly find out an answer later.
So, what are the predators that the squirrels have to be aware of when they're in Peru?
The predators for the squirrels?
Yes.
Uh, well, yeah, birds like how do you call it? Aves de rapina, Marcos?
Raptors.
Raptors are one of the predators. You can also have like arboreal species of like carnivore mammals, that go ocelots and other like cats or mustelids, that carnivore mammals that go on trees are also potential predators for squirrels in South America.
Maybe
Do
snakes.
you remember more, Marcus, to share besides birds and other carnivore mammals?
Maybe snakes. Probably.
Oh yeah, yeah. Out of out of the mammal world, yeah. Snakes are also
Yeah.
one potential, yeah, group of predators for squirrels. Great, thanks.
Great. Thanks for addressing that, you guys. So, here in North America, squirrels aren't very shy. They'll come up and take food from a person's hand. Are they more shy? Are they shyer in South America than they are here?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. General, I mean, I am South American, and the first time I came to US to do part of my master's, I was amazed with the squirrel like just coming and getting a nut from my hand, and then the squirrel started to chase me. I was like, that's definitely not like South American squirrels. South American squirrels, they won't do that. I have heard recently from some friends where you have squirrels in a kind of like, how do you call it, Marcus, when we have when you do like put food in a given place and then the species get used to come? Do you know
Um,
a term for
in,
these in English?
yeah, I forgot the word in English. I don't
Cevar. We
remember.
call it
Yeah,
cevar
yeah.
in
I don't remember in English that particular word.
So I
But
have heard of like kind of rare cases where people can see squirrels if you have a space that you usually put food there and the species,
like a
the
bait.
wildlife come to feed. It's kind of a baited area, but not with traps, just like to serve
Yeah,
food and then the animals will come. So you
sure.
often can see, and squirrels often will come to feed from bird food. If you have watched squirrels like in North America, you may have seen that. Um, but yes, they are shyer in South America, definitely, than in North America.
Great, thank you. So the mimosa species, their tails are incredibly long. Are they prehensile?
Yes, 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 they are.
Excellent. So when the excuse me, when the animals are trapped, do you take blood samples and measurements and things like that and then release them?
Yeah, so for most of the specimens collected, we do the type of like measurements and not necessarily blood samples. We can take blood samples. It's one of the procedures that researchers use. When you go to a site like this that hasn't been studied before, we as biologists and as field biologists, we need to do what we call a, what's the name in English? It's a voucher collection. Do you know the name in English, Marcus, for this? Coleção testemunho? Sorry, my English is missing.
Um, yeah, I don't remember as well. But yeah, that's just complementing the answer. So science usually do that. They usually release the animal when they get to know it better than rare species or new species. But sometimes we scientists do need to investigate more and take some samples, like to search for DNA and things like that, but not every time. Mostly in these rare places, like Silvia was showing to us.
Yes. So when you go to these rare places where like people haven't been and have not studied, we have to instead of just like capturing and releasing our animals, you release most of them animals, but you usually keep one or two representatives, and then you have like methods that scientists use to properly collect the animal without suffering, like euthanasia, and it's a procedure that we need for like later having the
Science.
material sitting in the collection that then you can use to compare with other species and then properly name a species. Because if you don't bring any voucher, we call it voucher specimen, if you don't bring it back, you don't have the voucher specimen to give the name of the species on that given individual, you know. I don't know if I was clear enough, but I tried.
You were clear. Thank you so much. So let me ask you this. Is the Andean bear also called a spectacled bear? Is that an alternate name for it?
Yes, the Andean bear is also known as the spectacle bear. I think it's because it has these like face marks that remind of I don't know, a glass
Yeah,
or like decoration in the face.
like a
Yeah.
glass. So this is the only bear we have here in South America. People usually forgot we have bears and we have squirrels, but we do. We like a study on them, but that's why I asked Silvia for showing us the squirrels, which I think we can see them in the wild. We just need to learn much more about them, and protect these places like you were studying with high biodiversity, so that the animals can continue there.
Yes. Thank you,
Great.
Marcus.
Do we have any questions?
Unfortunately, that is going to be the last question that we do have for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you guys for some closing comments.
I would just like to thank you, Sylvia, for showing us some research, some scientific research. Is really important for all the community, and it's important for us to know that there are scientists doing that, searching for new places with high biodiversity and searching for new mammals. And it's important for us to learn about these poorly known mammals like squirrels. So I'm a really big fan of squirrels, and I do believe if we keep searching them, we can find them in the field. And they are really beautiful here to see in South America. And it's nice to know that they are rare. So when I saw some of them, I was really happy. And now I will be even happier knowing that they are really rare. So I hope when people come here to experience field trips in NetHab in South America, they can see squirrels and all these newly mammals that people have been discovering. And thank you so much, Silvia, for your time and sharing this scientific knowledge with us.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for your invitation, and thank you everyone for listening. And just like making one little note, I the South American squirrels, I don't think they are like necessarily super rare, but they are shy. They're more elusive. So it's a matter of
Okay,
like us knowing how to search and paying attention, I guess, more than, I mean, there are some species I believe that are rare, but not all species of South American squirrels are rare, but they are usually like not very easy to see, or it's not like every field work that you do, you're gonna spot a squirrel like you do for
sure.
other animals, right? But yes, it was a pleasure to me to share a little bit of what I do and the expedition results. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And I just want to thank you guys for listening. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you both so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Now, if you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.